So do you have a team member who's she's helping other people, she's training, she's coaching, which, by the way, I think that is an absolutely fantastic way to find future leaders. In many organizations, people are promoted to leadership roles because they're really good at their jobs or because they've been around a long time. And unfortunately, neither of those have any correlation with being effective as a leader. But somebody who really likes coaching others, helping others develop, that's a really good sign. It sounds like your concern is that although she's doing well here, she hasn't had to deal with any type of conflict or an underperforming team member that reports to her. And so you want to help her develop that skill before she actually has to do it, under
Yes.
under in the real world, so to speak. Is there any potential to kind of make her a team lead, just kind of unofficially, and have her do some one-to-ones with, maybe 2 or 3 team members?
Yes, actually, that's what I have been doing for the
Great.
last month or so.
Okay.
She's like the team leader for her particular team,
Mm-hmm.
but they all have been great performance, and we haven't had any issues with them. So I think maybe with practice she can do it. It's like that's my doubt because she hasn't really been exposed to that kind of team member of that kind of situations before.
Okay. This is a great question. What about, is there a possibility that she could, if you're having a coaching session, you could get permission from somebody that you're coaching and ask her, ask if this team member that you want to help along could be part of that?
Yes.
That might be a way just to give her, like, to actually see it, and maybe have her sit in with you a couple times, and then maybe have her lead if possible, and just, especially if the feedback conversation is really handled well from the coaching framework. So just to give you an example of, a high level scenario, what I would consider not very effective feedback is somebody comes in and we say, okay, you're not performing very well. I don't think you didn't do this well. You didn't do this well. You didn't do this well. This is what I need you to improve. That's probably not going to yield the results you like. So if she's truly coming from the coaching perspective, I think she could do it with a peer, and the peer would have no problem, especially if this person's been around for a while and is good at what she does. A good coaching conversation or a good feedback conversation would be, hey, let's look at what happened over this last week. And if it's all objective, then it's very easy. And if you're in a sales organization, as I understand it, so it should be, all your numbers, everybody knows, right? You know how many outbound calls they had, how many times they followed up with prospects, what their close ratio is, all these things. You could just sit down and say, hey, let's look at your numbers for the week. What stands out to you? Where do you think you did well? Where do you think you'd like to do better? Then the person's talking. Well, I noticed I was really good on outbound call activity and follow-up activity, but I wasn't very good with creating a sense of urgency. It seemed like my clients are all pushing me off. Great, that's a great insight. So now you're helping the person that's being coached, they're developing self-awareness, right? They're becoming their own coach. This is what a good coach does. So then you could say, okay, well, let's look at how you're doing in that area relative to your peers. Oh yeah, it looks like you're right. This area is lagging behind. Your peers seem to be doing better in this area. So what do you think is the blockage? What do you think is getting in your way? Let the person self-diagnose. You might not agree, and so you could come in with your thoughts later. But then the idea is, so like, all right, so is this something you want to work on over the next couple of weeks? Is this a skill that you want to develop so that you can, hit your goals? Yeah, I do. Okay, great. Well, how often do you think we should meet over the next 3 weeks to talk about this? Maybe we can listen to a couple of your calls and go over, where maybe some opportunities were missed to create a sense of urgency. So, you probably do this, Alejandra, but this is something that I think even a peer could do with a peer, because You notice there's no judgment in any of that. There's no like, I think you didn't do well, I think you could do better. It's all, hey, these are objective numbers. Where is it that you want to get better? And most people, again, as coming back to kind of the previous conversation, most people want to achieve. I mean, they don't want to be, especially if they're in the bottom 10% of the team, they don't want to be bottom 10% of the team for that metric. So they want to improve, and they'll point it out like, oh yeah, that's where I'm behind. And so I think a peer can do that just as well as a manager. And so that might be an opportunity for you to give this team member a chance to, at first, she watches you do it. And then as long as you have the permission of the person who reports to you to say, hey, we've got Susana, let's just say is her name. And, she's one of our top performers. And we're trying to develop her coaching skills. Would it be okay if she sat in with us and coached you a little bit on helping you achieve your goals? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would imagine if any of your team members that are A players, they're going to say, well, sure, especially if you said they respect her, right?
Yes.
So I think that's a kind of some low-hanging fruit to deal with performance, especially in a way that's very constructive. Now, dealing with other types of issues, so to speak, like, people not following a policy or something like that, that could be a little trickier. That might just be something where you kind of have to, coach her once she's in it, once she's got the responsibility, because I think a peer might not be so open to having another peer talk to them about like they broke a rule or something like that. But performance coaching, especially if they're A players, I think they'd be open to that.